Playbook, a football podcast. With your hosts, Ashley and Michael, please sit back and enjoy the show.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Undroppables Playbook, a football podcast presented by the Undroppables. I'm your host, Ashley. This is my lovely co-host, Michael Duncan. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing just fine.
I'm doing very cold.
I don't think that's normally how the English language works, but I'm glad to hear it.
So cold.
I'm very
Have
sorry.
you guys been like this cold?
Yeah, it was like 6 degrees when I woke up.
Yeah, it's snowing in Florida.
Yeah, no, it's a mess.
Yeah. I have my rechargeable hand warmers because it's so cold.
I'm just sitting here.
Speaking about snow and weather, you had a snow game this weekend.
We did indeed.
You did.
My buddy of mine was there. Had a lot of fun. They were selling the Eagles today. Put snow from the game on sale. And it sold out today.
Great. What's the logistics?
I have no idea. It was authenticated snow from the game, though, to commemorate Saquon's 200-yard game. Yeah,
it made me really upset with the right as he crossed the goal line, the snow started flurrying.
It made me very happy.
It was very upsetting.
Made me extremely happy.
Not my fave. All right, we have a lot to talk about today. We intended last week to talk about some of the head coach searches and haps, but more happened this week. I'm kind of happy we waited. A lot of it today. So we'll get into it. Not a lot of big news. We'll talk about some stuff from the games this weekend and what's coming up. But first, we're going to talk to you about the head coach search, in which the news part of it is that Vikings head coach Kevin O'Connell agreed to a new multi-year contract extension. He will remain with the Vikings. Obviously, kind of expected from everyone and the right choice.
Yeah, I saw there was some discourse. I believe it was between Ari on Twitter.
Muroff?
Yeah, I believe so. And
Okay.
Jay Glazer. Okay, Ashley just turned the lights off on herself.
Give me a second. I did.
It was between Ari and Jay Glazer talking about how dropping the whole, teams are trying to trade for Kevin O'Connell right before the start, the Sunday morning of the game that the Lions and Vikings played for the number 1 seed was like, oh man, I just read a comment. But it seemed like it distracted the Vikings and all this stuff. And Jay Glazer was like, look, I don't work for Twitter. I work for Fox. So when I have news, I report it Sunday morning on Fox. And yeah, it was just very interesting that was kind of like a subplot of everything that I was reading about Kevin O'Connell. But regardless, yeah, not surprising and good for all parties involved.
Yeah, no, not surprising at all. I mean, even with the upsetting way it ends with like a weird Cinderella season, you give him the chance. You have the roster there for you. They obviously drafted JJ McCarthy last year with Kevin O'Connell in mind to keep that going. That was their plan for him. So, right choice. But a lot of choices made with the rest of them, which is like part of it. You have not too many super high up coaching candidates, and you had a lot of open seats this year. You were never going to fire Kevin O'Connell, but even if you were considering it was a tough market.
So Ashley just left. Not really sure what happened there, but there seems to be a lot going on around her. So hopefully she'll be back in a second. But to kind of continue her train of thought, there were a lot of open seats and not a lot of candidates that most people were in love with. And Ashley's back. Continue your thought.
Thank you. Okay. We'll talk about some of those big head coaching candidates. One, which came today, which is the Jets, who hire Aaron Glenn as their head coach. I did leave a note in here because I was thinking about it as I was typing it. It really drives me crazy that his name starts and ends with 2 of the same letters.
Why does that bother you?
His Glenn ends with 2 ends. I don't know. Something about it bothers me. So he was obviously the defensive coordinator with the Lions up until today. And earlier in the week, the Jets, when talking about interviewing him, had spoke about how they had intended to have him come back in for an interview, like in the building, and they had hopes of not letting him leave.
Yeah, which is always creepy.
Yeah.
When you first read it. I understand the thought behind it, but it has just become such common vernacular in these head coaching searches that it always, and same with like free agent stuff. It always just freaks me out a little bit. I always find it a little creepy. They don't mean anything by it, but it does creep me out just a tad.
Yep. Yeah. What do we think of this hiring?
I don't think the head coach is the main problem with the Jets. So I think there's a chance he could be a really good head coach. Even if he is a good head coach, there's a good chance it doesn't work out. Kind of like what we saw with Robert Saleh, who I think is probably a pretty good coach. But it's, they haven't hired, I don't think they've hired a GM yet. So that's going to be interesting. And then at the end of the day, Woody Johnson is still their owner. And if you have a bad owner who gets his hands in everything where he probably shouldn't be, it's hard. That's a hard recipe to win with, like no matter who your head coach is. So
yeah, and GM a lot of times is an owner's lackey, and their jobs are on the line for it, and they're doing it a little backwards. You and I talked a bunch about how some teams are in the past have chosen to hire head coaches before they choose to hire general managers, and it's backwards.
I don't know if I necessarily agree that it's backwards. I think it can be.
Yeah.
But in particular, the thing I have a problem with is more like what we'll talk about with the Jags, or what we expected to happen with the Jags.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, I think it's just it's more so you need to make sure that their thoughts are aligned. I think in this scenario where they've hired the head coach, and it's not like they have a guy waiting in the wings at GM where like he's practically already hired. I think now Aaron Glenn should be a part of those conversations. And I think if they do that, I'm a little more on board with it.
Yep. Aaron Glenn was the general manager of the Houston Stallions, a indoor football league in 2012. Yeah, he had great success with the Lions defense this year. Watching players like Brian Branch on that defense was so fun, so good to watch. He got really creative with the defense. And it does remind me of having someone like a Robert Saleh, a defensive-minded coach, someone who knows how to work with these uber-talented defensive players at a high level. So I think it could be a fit, but I agree with you on my hesitations lie further up the food chain.
Yeah, that's just of the things I'm concerned about with the Jets, head coach really wasn't the top of the list. It obviously matters, but what are they doing at quarterback? Who are they getting to do their GMing? And what is Woody Johnson actually going to, how big of a part of this team is he going to be moving forward?
Is he going to fly a helicopter down on the field again this year?
Well, honestly, if I had a helicopter, I'd do that too. If I had a helicopter and I owned it, why not?
Very fair. Very fair. Next big news, which is another one of the Lions coordinators, is the Bears, who hire Ben Johnson as head coach. He was the offensive coordinator of the Lions this year, has been for a couple years now high up on that list of coaching candidates. You and I had talked last year about how it might have been best for him to hold out in last year's coaching cycle, because we didn't find anything that necessarily stood out to us as like, that has to be Ben Johnson, So
I think when you're that sought after, you just wait for the perfect situation.
Exactly. And you write your own check at that point, right? And he took a gamble on himself and the Lions this year and said, we're going to be good. Like you take a gamble when you decide to wait, because if it all ends horribly, you might lose a job. He took a gamble on himself. I love the confidence. He ends up with the Bears. He says Caleb Williams is obviously one of the major factors there. And he said he went to a local bar in Chicago and had said that, this is where him and his family wanted to be.
Yeah. I think ultimately he's going to say a lot of things, but I think this really, if I was him, this simply came down to Caleb Williams.
Yeah.
I don't think he takes this job if they don't have Caleb Williams. I don't think he takes this job if he doesn't believe in Caleb Williams. And at the end of the day, like, Caleb Williams was the number 1 overall pick for a reason. Yeah, I understand Daniels has overtaken him in terms of the way that we all look at him. But Caleb Williams was still an uber talented player coming out of college. Was the number 1 overall pick for very good reason. And that's what's going to make her, like, when you get that first head coaching gig, you're kind of doing a lot of betting on yourself and your career. And like we said, I think it's smart to wait. And now you're walking into a place where they've got pieces on offense. They've
Oh
got
yeah,
DJ Moore, Keenan Allen,
Roma Dunze,
Odunze. I guess you can throw Cole Kmet there.
Met.
And then Caleb Williams, of course.
Yeah.
We did get a very specific question in the chat that I just want to.
Okay.
Do you think Ben Johnson helps Roschon Johnson be more involved? And I think that question probably stems from the fact that we saw the Lions approach their offense with Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. And obviously, DeAndre Swift signed a pretty big contract, and he was kind of hit or miss this year. But like ultimately, I think what made Ben Johnson run that type of offense is one, like Jared Goff is your quarterback, and I know it's a good couple of seasons, but they also had one of the best running games in the NFL because they had Jahmyr Gibbs, an uber talented running back, and David Montgomery, and also a really good running back and a very good running scheme in general. So I don't know if Roschon Johnson is really on the level of either of those guys. So will he be more involved? Like maybe if he plans a run heavy approach, but I also think he probably sees Caleb Williams
as one of those.
Yeah, having a higher ceiling than Jared Goff in his offense. So
yeah, and you also have Caleb Williams to factor into your run game, in which you didn't have with Jared Goff.
Yep.
So do I think Roschon Johnson could get more touches? Absolutely. Do I think he's going to have more production? Not necessarily.
Yep.
Okay. Any other thoughts about Ben Johnson?
The only to kind of tie these last two together, I think it's going the Detroit Lions are going to be a very, very interesting conversation both this offseason and going into next season, because we've seen in recent memory like what happens when these when the best teams over the past couple of years have gotten their coordinators poached away. And I say that as an Eagles fan that has watched it happen twice. With horrible results both times. Obviously, after we went to the Super Bowl, we lost Shane Steichen and Jonathan Gannon, and good riddance Jonathan Gannon. But the offense took a massive step back, as did the defense. Back in 2017, when we lost a lot of offensive coaches, including Frank Reich, to the Colts again. A big step back. Without an Andy Reid, you tend to see teams take a step back when they lose these coordinators, because these coordinators are getting hired for a reason, and they have a very large impact on the outcome of their team's success. And I love Dan Campbell, but we're really going to see what he brings to the table. And maybe he's really good at hiring coordinators and they don't take a step back. That's very possible. Another possibility is it's Doug Peterson, who can seemingly never hire coordinators and basically gets himself fired over it. Rest in peace, Dougie P. So it's especially after what should have been such a successful season and such a good feeling season. You're now coming off of
with such a sour taste. It's not even like you can't have any moral victory out of that either.
No, because you were the 1 seed and you did nothing with it. And so few teams over the past 10 to 15 years have won no playoff games as the 1 seed. Like the literal only one I can think of, because I know it was a stat for a long time, was the Dallas Cowboys. Is they were the 1 seed and they lost, and they were the first team in forever to do that. And now the Lions have done it, and it's just like, ultimately this season meant nothing. You get nothing out of it. And now you're going into next season with a sour taste. Two of the best coordinators in the league have gone on to head coaching jobs. And what do you have to show?
You walk out of it worse off.
Yeah.
Because you showed your best foot in every aspect except the playoffs. So now everyone want your coaches. Like, you walk out of it way worse off.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to overcome that. Dan Campbell still says that the Super Bowl is still in their future. It's still in the cards for next year, and that he expects his team to overcome the adversity. Patriots have completed their entire big three coaching cycle, classic Patriot style. We had mentioned, I think just very, very briefly last week, that the Patriots did decide to hire Mike Vrabel as their head coach. He was obviously most recently the former Titans head coach from 2018 to 2023. After he was fired there, he went on to be a coaching consultant with the Browns last season, but he has a long history with the Patriots, playing for the Patriots, coaching with the Patriots. So he is their head coach. They decide to hire Josh McDaniels on his third stint with the team as offensive coordinator, and they hire Terrell Williams as their defensive coordinator. So their big 3 slots are filled.
Yeah, it's just when I saw that they were interviewing and that Josh Daniels was the favorite for offensive coordinator, it makes sense. I'm not surprised by it because, again, like this is his third stint with the Patriots. Obviously, he's coached with Mike Vrabel in that building before, so the obvious connections are there. It makes sense, but it's just so funny because he's just so bad at being a head coach.
And
He's so bad.
So bad in general.
Well, yeah, he's kind of like a crappy person.
1 year as an offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach and was fired with his most recent stint.
Yeah,
like his last job with the Patriots. That's what got him fired. And now we're putting him in a situation with a new head coach in the building. Like, I know he's not new to the Patriots. He's not new to head coaching, but like new to right now, I guess I want to say. You're putting him there with a young rookie quarterback who currently has no talent on his roster and hoping that he's the best fit for that.
He's had success before.
God, this is not going to end well.
I mean, I kind of hope you're right because I think it'd be funnier.
Not gonna end well.
I do think Terrell Williams is a much more interesting name for defensive coordinator. He spent a lot of time with the Titans first as with Mike Vrabel, first as a defensive line coach, then as the assistant head coach, defensive line coach. Last year, he was a defensive line coach and the run game coordinator in Detroit, which I think is really important. And I'm curious to see
Shake
whether
and
or
bake
not,
era.
yeah, and I'm curious if he's going to have that same title or have any input in the run game. Obviously having a lot of success there and with the Lions. But yeah, another guy that Mike Vrabel just knows really well, probably trusts. Definitely going to be his first time calling plays as far as I'm aware. So it's going to be interesting to see how it turns out. Again, the Patriots defense probably has more talent than the offense, but it's still just a generally tired roster.
Yes. Mediocre. And it just feels like at some point you have to move on from your ways if it's not working now. Like, the NFL has evolved. Tom Brady is no longer your quarterback. The world has changed. Maybe we should try something new, even a little bit, even if you wanted to keep Vrabel and try something new in your other positions. To keep going back is bananas to me, and I don't know how this ends well.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. That's for sure. But Vrabel's a good head coach. So like that.
Doug Peterson, Press Taylor situation coming in.
We'll see. It's not there yet because Press Taylor has literally never had success doing an offensive coordinating. Like that's not fair. I won't let you put Press Taylor on that high of a pedestal. He has never done anything better than being like something below an offensive coordinator. He's never been good at anything above that. So no, Josh McDaniels has had success. Terrell Williams at least hasn't failed at it before. So no, stop it with the Press Taylor. You're putting him on too high of a pedestal.
Okay, fair. I had forgot. I had mentioned to you beforehand. I had forgot about Josh McDaniels' head coaching stint with the Denver Broncos.
I knew that.
I just forgot about how far back it was and how young he was when that was, because that was 2009.
Yeah, he was Sean McVay before Sean McVay to a degree.
Yeah. Okay, so that's all set. Those are our big hires of the week. Do you want me to just breeze through these next ones? It's a lot of GM and coordinator stuff.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, stop me if there's anything specifically you want to talk about, because I know we still have some games to talk about. So the Raiders are expected to hire John Spidek as the general manager. He's the, currently / former Buccaneers assistant general manager. The Titans hire Mike Borgonzi as their general manager and John Fassel as their special teams coordinator. The Colts hire Lou Anarumo as the defensive coordinator. Falcons hire Jeff Ulbrich as their defensive coordinator. Browns hire Tommy Breeze as offensive coordinator and hire Mike Bloomgren as offensive line coach. The Bengals hire Al Golden as defensive coordinator, who comes from most recently as of Monday, Notre Dame defensive coordinator. For some of the firings, obviously last week we had a great laugh about the Cowboys who parted ways with head coach Mike McCarthy.
After waiting a week to do it, and therefore
Mhm.
missing out on any of the impactful interviews.
Yes.
And now just I know you're about to
Yeah.
get there, but
Yes.
now they're entering their second interview with Brian Schottenheimer, their
Mhm.
offensive coordinator, who
Mhm.
I cannot imagine a more
Cowboys?
disappointing hire. Like, just like
Yeah.
as a fan, just a more of a like, why? I would have
Did they even watch their own offense this year?
I don't think they did. I don't think they care. I think they just know Brian Schottenheimer. Jerry can remember his name
Yeah.
because he's been in the NFL for like 4 decades.
Yeah.
And there's just it's so uninspiring. All of I would just rather I would rather a Nick Sirianni hire who like is just kind of like, huh? Or honestly,
Mhm.
more notable is probably Doug Peterson, where everyone's just kind of like, why are you the only people interviewing this guy? Like, at
Yep.
least it's like something new. Like Brian Schottenheimer, you know exactly who he is. There
Yep.
is nothing inspiring there whatsoever. It looks like it's probably going to be him, I guess. So,
Yeah. There's like not even really any other notable interviews. God.
I mean, they interviewed with Kellen Moore, who famously was their offensive coordinator for a
Yeah.
decent amount of time. He was under Jason Garrett, wasn't he?
I think so. Was he also under McCarthy?
I forget. I feel like he might have
I
been.
think he also fell under
Is
McCarthy.
there someone between Jason Garrett and Mike McCarthy?
No.
That's weird. Let me just look it up. But yeah, so I think he also played for them, but regardless. Yeah, he
I'm
did
curious
play for them
now.
for 3 years. And yeah, he was the quarterback's coach in 2018. He was the offensive coordinator from 2019 to 2022.
Yeah.
So yeah, he would have been under Mike McCarthy as well. And then he
Yeah.
spent a year with the Chargers before coming to
Chargers.
the Eagles. So
Yep.
I do see a decent amount of people still expecting him being kind of like the runner-up, likely, I guess.
Mhm.
Like if it's not going to be Brian Schottenheimer, it's probably going to be Kellen
Yeah.
Moore. Which again, it's just like, all right, dude, you're just hiring guys that you know the name of. It's like that's
Yeah.
just embarrassing. Like you
Yeah.
have not put together. You've not put together a search. Have they
No.
interviewed? Have they fulfilled a Rooney role? I truly I don't know
No.
who they've interviewed other than those two people.
You sent me that guy you sent me the current tracker of. He posted a new update today.
Oh, that would be nice. I liked that.
Yeah, he posted a new list today. If you want to share his handle, because we're using his things.
Let me need to find him.
Yeah, remember the Patriots had their Rooney Rule met, but same thing. Didn't feel like you're handling a real search. It feels like you just want to be like, sure, like I know him. Sounds good.
And this is Sebastian on Twitter at Mr. Case B. Has some really good tables and trackers that he posts regarding different coaching searches. So if we look at the Dallas Cowboys, they have indeed interviewed Brian Schottenheimer, Kellen Moore, Leslie Frazier. That's who it was. And apparently they interviewed Robert Saleh. So
Leslie Frazier won.
Yeah, same with Robert
On the Rooney
Saleh,
Rule.
I assume.
I
think.
I don't know how
right?
that works.
I don't either.
I would need to look at the fine print.
It's minority, but
yeah,
I don't know.
I'm not sure.
Yeah. So
yeah, Robert Saleh is also going to be talked about in our next segment, which is the Jacksonville Jaguars, who obviously fired Doug Peterson as their head coach. And then today, this morning, 2 weeks after firing Doug Peterson, 2 long weeks of having the general manager go through the coaching hiring search, fire him. This comes pretty much very shortly after sought after candidate Buccaneers offensive coordinator Liam Cohen voluntarily withdrew his name from consideration this morning. He chose to remain with the Buccaneers on a new deal as the offensive coordinator. And then just a few hours later, they fired Trent Baalke as general manager. He has been there for 4 seasons. It happened today.
It felt like
Wednesday.
he's been there for 40 years, honestly.
Right?
I swear he's going to get fired every year.
Yeah. Yeah. Everyone always walks around like this guy has dirt on someone.
Which, honestly, 4 years is not that long.
Yeah. So,
very weird.
The owner, Shad Khan, had released a statement, I believe January 6th, from when I was reading articles about just like their timeline of everything that was happening. So January 6th, after firing Doug Peterson, he was asked about keeping the general manager. And he had said, like, we're still doing a lot of thorough investigations and looking into and self introspection and all this. And I don't want to, the exact quote was, I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater, which I can understand to an extent, because you're still trying to analyze what went wrong. But it feels like Trent Baalke has been on the chopping block for years, all four. And then you manage to keep him and you can't figure that out for 2 weeks when you have now missed out on so many good candidates, so many of the top candidates who likely, while this is a team with a high cap and a lot of players ending of their deals, the Jaguars are still in a good position regarding quarterback, which is obviously one of the reasons Ben Johnson chooses to stay with Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams is in a world of his own, but they're in one of the better positions if you're looking at like quarterback. Okay. So they should be a destination in which offensive minded head coaches would like to go. But Shad Khan keeps Trent Baalke for 2 weeks after firing Doug Peterson. And now whoever Shad Khan wants to be the head coach will be the head coach, or they will wait to find a GM and then find a head coach. I think losing Liam Cohen was a nail in the straw. I just combined two analogies. Was a nail in the coffin, straw that broke the camel's back, for Trent Baalke's time with the Jaguars. He has been great with the Buccaneers. He was on a lot of lists this year for coaches to watch at the beginning of the season when we talked about hot seats and everything like that. So losing Liam Cohen kind of seems to be just the end of it, right? You try and negotiate, you can't get him what he wants, and you can't really swing him in your direction, and he chooses to stay where he is. I think that was telling for the Cons. And this is in the middle of like their project of trying to build a whole new stadium and expanding their reach overseas. Like the NFL has been using the Jaguars overseas a lot. So that's a big decision with firing a general manager who has been at the helm of the last few years of this expansion of the Jaguars franchise.
Yeah, it's both not surprising and surprising
at
the same time. Like, because you just kind of don't expect it to happen 2 weeks into the search. Like, it's very Dallas Cowboys of them.
Very, very. They do have 2 second interviews scheduled per NFL.com, and that would be with former Jets head coach Robert Saleh and current Raiders defensive coordinator Patrick Graham. So the head coaching jobs that are still open, there are 4 that remain. That would be the Jaguars, Saints, Cowboys, and Raiders. Of what's left, if you were a head coaching candidate, where would you choose to go?
No.
Fair.
The Jaguars.
That's
Yeah, at least you have Trevor Lawrence.
That was when you had to step away for a second. That was the pitch I was making. Was like, yes, it's not prime cap space. You have players at the end of their deals, but you have Trevber Lawrence. I mean,
like realistically, like it's probably the Cowboys, but I hate the Cowboys, so I can't say the Cowboys. But like realistically, that's probably the best option, because for as much of a mess of an organization they are, you're at least gonna make money. Like I don't know,
and get too long of a chance.
Yeah, like there's job security. Job security kind of way. So,
oh god,
the Cowboys.
Yeah. So that wraps up the first half of our show. If you are listening, please stay tuned for a brief ad. And we're back and we're going to talk about what happened this week with our divisional rounds of the NFL playoffs. Our weekend started off with the referees. The Chiefs beat out the Texans 23-14 in Kansas City. Texans faced a special teams nightmare with Kaimi Fairbairn, with a missed extra point, a missed field goal, and a blocked field goal. It was the Travis Kelce show, as always, in the playoffs. And the highlight coming out of the game is the conversation around the referees. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit more with what's coming up for the Chiefs in the officiating pipeline for the next game. But was it roughing the passer or illegal contact? Which one was that? Was a really bad one. I don't know which one it was. Unnecessary roughness. There was an unnecessary roughness penalty, which it very much looks like the player was actively trying to dodge Patrick Mahomes. Yeah. I have loved this year the instant review. And I think instant review should be able to overturn calls on the field like that.
I agree. Like, it's an old conversation,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't want to stick on it too long. But like, ultimately, like, the NFL refereeing is a joke. It's embarrassing for the most profitable sports league in America. They are the only of the 4 major sports leagues to not have their refs be full-time employees.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's kind of, to an extent, hard to blame refs because the NFL doesn't allow them to do, like, it's just,
They don't have the technology that other leagues have. They don't have anything. Like, again, full-time, the training is less, I'm pretty sure, than everything else.
Yep.
But again, that comes down to being full-time and part-time employees. And again, like, I'm not trying to make the full conversation about the refs, but when you have to have the conversation over and over regarding the same team, it becomes a bullet point that you have to mention.
Yeah, I mean, like, when you watch the rest of the games this weekend, specifically 2 games in particular, the Eagles and the Bills and the Ravens, you saw, I'd say mostly Jalen Hurts and Lamar Jackson take hits, both inbounds and out of bounds, that everyone is just a worldwide agreement that, if that was Mahomes, that would be a flag.
Yep.
Every time. Josh Allen probably gets it a little bit better than those other 2 guys. Partly just, I don't know, maybe it's the running style, the amount he runs. I don't know exactly what it is.
I think it's the way he runs too.
Yeah. But like, I think the way Josh Allen is called is probably, maybe, I don't know if it's the most accurate. It's probably like,
it's the most fair, I would say. I could agree of what we're talking about right now. I would say it's pretty fair. Yeah.
And like, I think, it's just frustrating because it's, at this point, it's not something that, you're watching and you're just like, is this just me? Like,
it's a bad product.
It is. And I'm watching the Chiefs and the Texans. I don't have an overall rooting interest in that. This isn't me complaining about like calls that weren't made against my team or something like that. And it's just like, the thing that bothers me more than anything, and this is a little bit personal to an extent, is like, people complain about this all the time in the NBA. And it's true with with every star player. They are complaining to the ref after every play. And honestly, most of the time, you're probably getting fouled to an extent.
Yeah.
But there's plenty of times you aren't. It's a different game. It's refereed differently. It's played differently. I counted 1 time in the Eagles game where Jalen Hurts was upset that something wasn't called. And it was when he went to slide and took a hit. I'm not sure I saw any from Lamar Jackson. I might have saw 1 from Josh Allen.
Allen does it.
He does it.
Yes.
He's healthily in the middle.
Yeah.
Patrick Mahomes does it on every play. I'm exaggerating, but it's a lot. It is every single play. It's either dude shouldn't have hit me, or something is going on out there and it's just annoying. It's just annoying,
before you mentioned the NBA, in my head, I was literally about to say he needs to stop NBA-ifying my NFL. He needs to stop flopping. He needs to stop crying. He needs to play. You're good. You're good. You want to tout yourself as generational. I understand that generational quarterbacks were given the same type of benefits that you are allotted, but it's starting to get so beyond egregious. And again, you cannot say, well, this is just because of it's the way he plays, because there are quarterbacks playing this season his style of football better than he is this year.
That's not the way he plays.
It's not the way he plays. It's not anything. It's got to stop. It's driving me bananas.
And like they in the NBA, they call it like there's a lot of different kind of ways they go about it. There's a star whistle is always going to get more than like a role player's whistle. And there's also just a sense of like once you're in the NBA for a couple years and you are a star, they just kind of assume you get fouled. Like sometimes like there's just regardless of whether or not there's actually a call, Joel Embiid, he gets a lot of hate.
Mm-hmm.
The fact of the matter is he is 7 foot tall and you can't actually stop him, and he does get fouled all the time. However, he gets a very kind whistle because the refs are looking at it and they're like, well, yeah, he probably got fouled. Like, if this happens, if it gets knocked out of his hands, yeah, it was probably a foul because it's Joel Embiid. And that's what it's like that's what it's becoming in the NFL with Patrick Mahomes to an extent, where it's just like, okay, well, he got hit. It looked a little weird. Yeah, that's a foul call. Whereas no other quarterback gets that level of a different whistle. It's like, oh, if that didn't work out in the way that I expect it to, it must be a foul.
Yes.
So.
Yep. Yeah, and we do have a comment here from Jamie about how Clay Martin and his officiating crews. The Chiefs are 7-0 when playing with Clay Martin officiating crews. And
I will say
Chief games.
Those numbers are probably going to look ridiculous with almost
when they win
reffing crew because they just that's all they do is win.
Yes, I am going to give you a fun. They may not have the upper hand with the referee crew coming up this weekend, but they move on. Texans stay home. Their season ends. It was a rough one for them. Lots of ups and downs. Lost some key players. CJ Stroud still looks great. A little bit of regression this year compared to last year, but still young. They still have a lot of hopes. He says he's happy to have Stephon Diggs back. Hopeful to have him back. Like we were just getting started. I think the quote was, "We were just getting started." So he hopes that's maybe a possibility that Stephon Diggs would explore. Yeah, and you win that one, and I had went with my heart and saw the Texans, and they tried. Whatever. I took a shot.
It's the first time in NFL history that all 4 teams that lost this week outgained their opponents in yards.
I didn't know that.
Yep.
Wow. Okay, great. Okay, on to one of the most exciting games I've seen in a long time. The Commanders head to Detroit to face the 1 seed, and they walk away with the victory, 45-31. The Lions' great season again ends in sadness, with Dan Campbell crying for different reasons at the podium this year, crying about how, this was on me, this is my fault, and the Lions' hopes and dreams come crashing down, as does their hierarchy of staff. The Commanders and Jaden Daniels will move on to play the Eagles in Philadelphia next week.
Yeah, I mean, the Commanders put up 28 points in the second quarter.
Yeah.
It's very fun to look at the box score because I didn't realize it at the time.
Mm-hmm.
But after the first quarter, Detroit's leading by 7.
Mm-hmm.
After the second quarter, Detroit is behind by only a touchdown, roughly.
Mm-hmm.
My mental math isn't entirely mental mathing. It was 21-31, so they're down by 10. Then the Lions are the only team to score in the third quarter to bring it down by just 3, and then the Commanders score 14 points in the fourth quarter to basically end the game.
Fun.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
Jaden Daniels is great. He's very entertaining. He's very fun to watch. This was why I never had a ton of faith in the Lions. I thought they were good, but I don't think I've ever been as high on them as most people this year. And it's really because they had a lot of injuries on defense.
Yep.
They had a lot of injuries on defense. And it really cost them.
Yeah.
Because as fun as the Commanders are, as fun as Jaden Daniels is, and as good as they've been this season, it's not like they're boat racing teams all the time.
Aiden Hutchinson changes that game to a point where Jaden Daniels is laid out in the backfield.
Yeah, and he's still a young quarterback, and they ultimately the Lions put up 31 points and lost, and that doesn't happen very often.
Yep.
I mean, shout out to the Commanders. It's not an easy thing to do, to go on the road to a hostile environment and win. It's not an easy thing to do, especially with a rookie quarterback.
Especially in Detroit. Detroit has been a really hard place to play for the last 2 years.
Yep.
Regular season games, their fans have been incredible. Their season tickets were sold out so far in advance. Their production value in the stadium has been incredible. And it's just a place where everyone wanted to go and be. And so it's really hard to walk into Detroit lately and win a football game.
And they're somehow going to walk into a harder one next week.
Yeah. Wild. We'll talk about that in a moment. But we'll talk about who they're facing first. They are facing the Eagles, who walk away, start the game in the sunshine, cold, but with sunshine, and leave the game as winners 28-22 within the snow. Saquon Barkley.
First player to ever put up 200 yards against an opponent in both the regular season and the playoffs, like the same opponent.
Yeah.
Also,
I just want to crosses the goal line as the snowflakes fall, and I literally have to text Duncan and be like, I hate how freaking magical.
But then that second one, when he
the
hit
first
his,
one was
he
like
hit his
literally
helmet,
art.
He hit his helmet twice when he's going down. He said that the second one, I think it was like a 78-yard touchdown where like he looks back and then he hits his helmet a couple times. He does the slide in the end zone. He said that was his
against Jared Verse, right?
No, that the first one is when he looked backwards at Jared Verse on the right side of the field. The second one was to put them up by like 14 or something, with like 4 minutes left in the game. He said that was his favorite touchdown play that he's ever had in his career, like from Pee Wee all the way up.
Great.
Yeah, he's just incredible.
Great. And Rams made a decent comeback. The game was a very interesting game.
I hated it.
Yeah, it was scary if you were an Eagles fan. The Rams made a really good comeback. It became close. It became scary. The Rams just couldn't close it out. They had difficulties with the Eagles run game, which was something I had mentioned to you last week when we were talking about what we were anticipating. But yeah, the Rams also had a lot going on, right? And you can't not mention that. I mean, there are still wildfires burning in California, and they've had a lot going on, and it's a lot of weight to carry on your shoulders. And I think they've done it with such grace. And after starting out the way they did last season, I think you can still walk away from this one with fond memories of the season. Because I think if you ask anyone, even probably midway through the season, or early mid, that it's like, I still don't know that we end up in that place where you end up in the divisional round of the NFL playoffs with an NFC that was wide open but competitive.
Yeah. 4 quick things. Okay. I was counting them in my head. One, I'll start with this. Shout out to Jared Verse. Talked a lot of shit this week.
So much. He's such a Florida State kid.
He did back it up. He played incredibly well. And what I like better is he was very open about. He handled it very well after the game. He didn't continue talking shit. He was like, nah, like we lost. He just all in all, I can't really say class act because it's not exactly like a class act thing, but like it is like as a Philadelphian.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
A lot of shit. I respect you. Yeah. I respect you more with the way you handled all of that from start to finish. That is a respectable way to talk shit, back it up. And honestly,
it's fun.
I tend to think that if he played like crap, he would have been like, yeah, I can't talk like that, and then I'll back it up. Like, yeah, I respect that. Other 3 things. First team All-Pro Zach Bond. First of all, you called him Bohm, who is the third baseman for the Phillies. Yeah. Not the same. Zach Bond is a
the name was in my head because I got really into the Phillies that one year that they got really fun.
That's been like every year.
I think it was 2 years ago.
It probably was. That was the most fun.
That was like when the Yankees broke my heart again, and then I was like, you know what, screw it.
Go Phils. Yeah, put some respect on his name. He's a first team All-Pro. Came out of nowhere, and he had an incredible game where he was missing his wingman, Nakobe Dean, who was out with injury. Yep. Zach Bond just had an awesome game. He was just flying all over the field. Again, he's not going to win Defensive Player of the Year, but if his name was Patrick Queen, he would win Defensive Player of the Year. And I wholeheartedly believe that. It's just the fact that around when week 13 was happening, people were starting to realize the season he was having.
Yeah.
So
late bloomer.
It's just it. Well, yeah. He's not a late bloomer.
I'm saying like in the talk, not in his. In this on the scene,
No one expected it, and they weren't looking at his stats because they were like, why would I ever look at Zach Bond's stats?
Yeah.
A
And
shout out.
the other huge names on the team. He falls, you know what I mean? Like he falls to the wayside when you have a bunch of other incredible defensive players.
I don't even think we have a ton of huge names, really. We have a couple, because like Quinyon Mitchell, first round pick, is exciting. Darius Slay was on and off the field, but he's a known guy.
Yeah.
And the other really big name, before I
Dean.
forget CJGJ. Dean's not really a big name because he's been injured for 2 years. He was a third round pick.
Yeah, but I still think he has a lot of name recognition. You know
well,
what I mean?
He has more than Zach Bond, but
that's what I'm saying. So you fall to the wayside
I
when
have
people
more
are
name
looking through the
recognition
stat
than Zach
charts.
Bond. I have
Michael
more
P.
name
Duncan.
but like Nakobe Dean wasn't taking things away from Zach Bond because he
I
hasn't
can
done anything
understand what
in
you're
the
saying.
NFL.
I'm just saying for like a casual viewer who's not watching the Eagles like you're watching the Eagles, you fall to the wayside when you see that name and when you see all of the other names that you know from watching.
Yeah, I don't think we have that many names. We're the fourth youngest team in the NFL, and the majority of that is on defense.
Okay, next point. We're running out of time.
Okay, well, Jalen Carter, he's a man among children, apparently.
Yeah.
Because he's already one of the best, if not the best, defensive tackle in the league. He single-handedly won them that game with the last 2 plays. If you don't know what I'm talking about, just go back and rewatch it because it's spectacular. It's incredible. He is just ridiculous. He is so good. And Saquon Barkley. He's just awesome.
Yep.
So I love him.
On to our next game. The Ravens go to Buffalo in the cold, in the frigid, and walk home cold and frigid. The Bills win this one 27-25 in a pretty fun game, where it comes down to one of the few final plays. It was not fun if your name was Mark Andrews or Lamar Jackson.
Fun if you cheer for the Ravens at all.
No.
Any capacity.
Yeah, so lot of turnovers on the Ravens side. People clipping the Lamar Jackson interview are pissing me off. They're clipping it to make it seem like he's fully blaming Mark Andrews. Yes, there were 2 key moments of the game where Mark Andrews was front and center for failures, issues, whatever you want to call it. The dropped pass on the 2-point conversion, the fumble on the long reception. Lamar Jackson, in the beginning of that interview, talks about how he had too many turnovers and he should have played better. Stop clipping it to make the guy look like he's talking poo about his teammate.
Well said.
And Bills fans, as always, have been doing what they do and donating to Mark Andrews, like a cause that is beneficial to Mark Andrews. Mark Andrews obviously has type 1 diabetes, if you did not know. And Bills fans have raised a lot of money for type 1 diabetes research. This is not the first time they've done this. They did it a lot.
They make a habit out of
when
it.
players get injured at Highmark Stadium. Is that still the name? What did it change to?
Is it still Highmark? I don't even remember that name. That's not the name that I know at all, but now I can't think of it because you have Highmark in my head. Yeah, apparently it's called Highmark Stadium. What did I think it was called?
I don't know. That's what I thought. Highmark Stadium. Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was still Ralph Wilson.
No, Highmark. Okay, I was right. I thought it changed from Highmark to something else.
Oh, it was Bills Stadium in 2020. And then it was New Era Field before that, and it was Ralph Wilson. I think a lot of people still call it Ralph Wilson. I think that's what confuses me.
Probably.
Anyway.
Yeah, so they make a habit out of showing love to causes that are near and dear to these players' hearts, and they have come out in stride to support type 1 diabetes with all of the internet hate surrounding Mark Andrews after the disappointing loss for the Ravens on Sunday. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it was a fun game. It really wasn't, honestly. I don't think it was.
I thought it was kind of fun.
It wasn't. It was 24-10. I think. Is that what it was?
It wasn't like great football, but it was fun.
I don't know. It was painful. It was fun for like the ending. That's the thing. The ending was fun because it was just kind of like it doesn't feel like they really should be about to win this game.
Yeah, it also
But
doesn't
they're
feel
about to push
good.
to overtime, and then it was just like, ugh. It felt like
Yeah.
every time something was about to happen, something bad happened, and it was like, oh, okay, I guess like, like the final score was good and the ending was good, but like the majority of the game, it didn't really
Yeah.
feel. It felt like the Bills were kind of running away with it.
Yeah.
I guess that was probably more the first half than the second half.
Josh Allen rushed in for 3? 2? 3?
Yeah, I have no idea.
2, 3. 3.
I don't know. I feel like it was
Okay.
2. But yeah, no, I mean, the Bills won, and now we're gonna get Bills v Chiefs round like 12 at this point.
Seriously. We have a question for you, but I'm gonna keep it for just a moment in the chat while you catch your breath. That was our divisional round of the NFL playoffs. It was wild, but we're gonna move on to what we're expecting this week. First of all, let me just say I love a 6:30 game, and we should have more of them in the regular season. Love a 6:30 game. It's so nice when it ends that you still have like a little bit of time and it's not 11 o'clock at night.
That's fair. I tend to agree with that. But
God.
you should really.
I feel like the East Coast dads that are like.
I was gonna say
kids.
you just move 2 time zones over and you'll get it all the time.
I know. I feel like the East Coast dads on Twitter. Yeah. Okay, so we're gonna talk about in order what's happening. We have Commanders and Eagles Sunday at 3. This will be their third matchup of the season. They played on November 14th and December 22nd. This is the first time these two are facing each other in the conference championship. Only the second time they are ever facing each other in the playoffs ever.
Yep. And last time the Redskins won and they continued on to win the Super Bowl.
Yes. And because I mentioned officiating earlier and I want to talk about it a little bit more on the next term, but I have to leave it in here for this. The head officiant is Sean Hochuli. He's the lead ref. Okay, there we go. I knew I was saying it so wrong.
How have you not heard that name 1,000 times?
I have, and I couldn't figure it out in my head. So I was trying to click the link. Eagles are 6-1 with Hochuli, and Commanders are 1-3. I did have this incredible breakdown that I had found on Twitter from NFL Ref Stats 1. It's an incredible reference sheet.
I love the fact that Ref Stats was probably taken.
Yeah, right? Like NFL Red Stats. The Eagles are 6-0 and 3-2-1 against the spread. Against the spread record with Hochuli in the Sirianni Hurts era.
Hochuli.
I said it again. Trying to go fast.
Gotta go fast.
Let me see. Washington was able. Oh, there was a whole lot of controversy about one specific game with that Washington had with him as the lead ref. And this specifically talks about how an ineligible man downfield is going to be something to watch out for, roughing the passer, and third down. He called the fewest defensive penalties of anyone on third downs in 2024, and overwhelming 76% of their third down penalties were assessed on the offense. If form holds, both defensive units will be provided leeway on Sunday.
We get so many ineligible man downfield. I'm already sick of it. Mm-hmm. And I get it. Like, they're accurately called. It's just like annoying.
Yeah.
And the red, now I called them that once because they were then, but the Commanders will probably get them too because Jaden Daniels is a running quarterback and that's part of their offense. But yeah, it's frustrating.
Okay. Quickly, thoughts, expected, like what you're looking forward to, what you're looking out for.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, as the playoffs go on, I get more superstitious and I can't really talk bad about my opponents because I will fear that is the reason that we lose. But ultimately, we beat them once, and the second time when we lost to them, we lost Hurts for the whole game. Which, by the way, Frank Louvu, someone's got to look into him because just like kind of look him up on Twitter a little bit if you don't know what I'm talking about. Watch some of the hits that he has on guys. I'm not saying dirty player, but also like maybe someone should teach him how to not aim for the head.
You know how many people I saw this week talking about if they're going to call that on Mahomes anyway, we just need to get one person on every team to just
I very specifically saw someone say that what's his face should come out of retirement. Who was that dude? The dude who ended Antonio Brown's
perfect.
Yeah,
Vontaze perfect.
And then a fake Vontaze perfect account tweeted.
Yeah, it was like I will if I get this money retweet. Yeah.
It's like, yeah, I had to double check that it wasn't him because also it wouldn't surprise me if it was him. But regardless, yeah, Frank Louvu, I don't love that. But also Washington lost I don't know if he was all pro, but like Pro Bowl level offensive guard, Cosme or something.
Sam Cosme.
Yeah, Sam Cosme. He's done. And well, Jalen Carter.
Broke his arm.
So that's scary if I am the Commanders. But like ultimately, it took every miracle they had to beat us with Kenny Pickett playing.
Mhm.
And we had no problem beating them with Jalen Hurts playing the full game. And yeah, it hasn't been pretty. But the Eagles have just won a lot of games. And no, I'm not overly afraid because they just put up 45 against the Lions. Because as I said before, the Lions defense is really hurt and they
Mhm.
have not been particularly good. Whereas Vic Fangio has the best defense in the league.
Mhm.
And Quinyon Mitchell is apparently not going to have any limitations. He's going to be back and healthy. Obviously, losing Nakobe Dean hurts, especially because Jaden Daniels is a runner. I think that's the thing that really scares me is how they're going to adjust to covering Jaden Daniels.
Do they
with
use him as a
just
spy a
Saquon.
lot?
Not necessarily as a spy, but he would rush the passer. He would
Okay.
rush the
Like up
passer
the middle.
decent bit. Yeah, so he would kind
Mhm.
of fill some holes. Like he's more. I mean, Nakobe Dean, like his calling card was being very athletic. So
Yeah.
it's a drop off from him to Oren Burks, but it'll be interesting to see if maybe Trotter gets a little more run. But regardless, like I'm confident because I don't love that Jalen Hurts' leg is hurt. I'm very
He's off
intrigued
a
to see what
perk in that interview.
I know that's yeah.
Aaron Rodgers off of perk levels
Yeah.
there. He's like, "Am I allowed to talk about this?"
Jalen Hurts was very smiley, which we never
I'm
see.
so
That's why
proud
it's
of
so
him.
obvious.
I am so proud of him that he did not spill his guts. If you've
Yep.
ever been on a medication like that after getting injured, you know that all you're going to want to do is spill your guts. And she was doing such a good job as a reporter. She was asking the questions in the perfect way as to not make it feel like pushy, right?
Yeah.
And so and this man is definitely off a perk. And like he had to like pause for a minute and be like, I don't think I could talk about that.
Yeah,
like
I love that man.
incredible, truly
Love
incredible.
love him with all my
Cinema.
heart. But no, I'm confident. And so is the betting odds. Apparently, I mean,
Oh, I
think
forgot to look at that.
we've already increased. I want to say we're like 6 or 6.5 point favorites at the moment. And we
All right,
also
good.
are currently, I guess, depending on the site, the Eagles are currently the favorites to win the Super Bowl, which surprised me.
While I look up the lines, I'll let you answer that one question really quickly, which is, with you being an Eagles fan, do you think they can beat the Chiefs if both of them make it to the Super Bowl?
Yeah, I think they can. I don't know if they will, but I think they definitely can. I think the Eagles have, and I've thought this all year, they have probably the deepest roster in the entire NFL. They have an incredible defensive coordinator, and they have all the weapons. And I'll just quote Jalen Hurts and say, just because we don't doesn't mean we can't.
Eagles are 6-point favorites against the Washington Commanders on spread, and they are minus 285 on the money line. Commanders are plus 230.
I'm going to
Over
take
under is set at 47.5.
I'm going to take the Commanders to cover, but the Eagles to win outright.
I think just for fun, I'm taking the Commanders.
Why?
One, because then one of us gets to be right and one of us gets to be wrong.
I hope you're wrong.
And it would be so funny if you were wrong and lost. But I'm also just rooting for Jaden Daniels.
Honestly,
and if I have to see Saquon Barkley go to the Super Bowl with another team,
that's bitter. That's you being bitter because your owner and your GM suck.
I never disagree with that. Ever.
So don't take it out on Saquon.
I'm not. I really.
You don't want him to succeed because your GM sucks. That's not his fault. Support that man. All he ever did was give you the best 6 years.
I have the whole season, and it's making me. It literally takes a piece of me every single time.
Not the best 6 years of his life because this is already the best year of his life. But
and more so just because then I can wear I don't have a vintage Eagle sweatshirt. I will never own a vintage Eagle sweatshirt, but I do own a vintage Washington Redskins sweatshirt.
Why?
And I always get to pick why, because it was super cool. And I don't have as much hate in my heart for that.
You're stupid. Just
one of our comment, Jamie here, who's been chatting with us the whole thing, says if the Eagles win, it's the last leg of a parlay to hit for a $200 profit.
Hell yeah, go Birds.
All right, on our last game of the week is coming up is the Bills at the Chiefs on Sunday at my favorite time, 6:30. the breakdown of the officiating here, because I've been talking about that I was getting to this point the whole time. Officiating, Cleet. Is his first name Cleet?
Is it not Clint?
No, it's typed as Clete. And I double checked that. And if his name is Cleet, that's like really
I got nothing
ironic.
for you. I've never
Okay.
heard it before.
Okay. Blakeman. He is the lead
Oh yeah,
ref.
Cleet Blakeman. Yeah, no, that's
Cleet. Okay, yeah, Cleet. That's funny.
Sorry, no, I have heard his name.
His crew called the most penalties this year, averaging 16 per game.
His name is
they called-
Cletus.
Oh, okay, so it's
It's
nickname.
Cleet,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. He called the most penalties on home teams out of any crew, and the second most penalties on away teams of any crew. Mahomes is only 6-5 in games he officiates. The last time Blakeman and his crew officiated it, this quote is from SI Bills. The last time that Blakeman and his crew officiated a Chiefs game was in January 25, 2023 against the Raiders. It was the last time the Chiefs with Mahomes as starting quarterback have lost a game, other than their Week 11 loss to the Bills this year. Why would you frame it like that? What?
I don't know. I'm reading his Wikipedia.
In the Raiders game, there were 9 flags from Blakeman's crew totaling 64 yards with 5 flags against the Chiefs. Most importantly, the Raiders were able to physically get after Mahomes, who only completed 61% of his passes, was sacked twice, and had 3 QB hits against him. The Raiders won 20-14 in that game.
Well, hopefully they let him play.
Mm-hmm.
He's also an attorney.
I don't care what happened. Like, what kind of attorney?
I don't know. But also, since 2013, it's his voice and likeness that has been used for penalty announcements in Madden.
Huh. Good for him, Cleet.
This is the most interesting Wikipedia page I've ever seen for
God, he's like so
referee.
multi-talented. I'm rooting for Cleet, and especially because he also just like lets the game play. He doesn't root for Mahomes.
He did Super Bowl 50. Haven't gotten to 60 yet.
Okay. What are your thoughts on this game?
So you know my love for the Bills.
I do.
Very close to my heart.
Your second team.
Right next to the Eagles. I do not want to play the Bills in the Super Bowl. So because like there's just a lot of personal things that I won't be able to handle well.
Mm-hmm.
Like just like with people close to me. Because like I kind of like I would love for the Bills to win a Super Bowl, but like not at the cost of me losing the Super Bowl. So assuming that the Eagles win, I will not be rooting for the Bills to win.
Mm-hmm.
But if the Eagles lose, I will be rooting for the Bills. Because if we lose, I want the Bills to win. But if we win, I don't want to beat the Bills in the Super Bowl. Because I already know my friend's dad will complain about every call for the rest of time. And he will hold that Super Bowl against me as if I was the one that made a call that was supposedly bad.
You were clear.
Yeah. So I just don't want to. I don't want to do that. But ultimately,
keys to success.
Ultimately, it's always cool. It's like it is getting to the point of like seeing Tom Brady and Peyton Manning in the playoffs. And it is reaching that. And so very rarely do we see those types of rivalries develop out of division between quarterbacks in the NFL. And I'm just kind of thankful that I'm getting to live through it. And I'm thankful I get to see it again because they're two great teams. And I'm just hoping for a good game. And I hope we don't have to talk about the refs. Win or lose, no matter who wins, who loses, I hope we don't have to leave and talk about the refs. That's all. That is my only ask. That's it.
Yep. Yeah. I just let them play. Let them play football. It's the freaking. Oh, okay. So, what are on each side of the ball? One for the Bills, one for the Chiefs. What wins them the game?
For the Chiefs, it's defensive turnovers.
Yep.
And for the Bills, it's Josh Allen.
Mine is Josh Allen. Chiefs is hard. It's been such a. Listen, I've never been the biggest fan of the Chiefs, but like when you get down to it, sometimes it's like, all right, whatever, I can deal with them. It has been the ugliest season. Sorry, it has been so ugly, so miserable, terrible looking. It's not even fun football. I'm rooting for the Bills. I think they can do it. I think if anyone can do it, it's Josh Allen and the Bills to take them down, and I just don't want another Chiefs Super Bowl. Let me ask you a question.
Stop touching things on your desk.
Sorry, I was. Let me ask you something. If it got down to it, and the Bills were not in there, and the Eagles were not in there, would you ever root for
Chiefs.
Like the Steelers because No, I'm saying like in another universe, right?
Okay.
The Steelers, like, would you ever be like, well, then at least it's in Pennsylvania?
No, that's stupid and dumb.
Yep.
I don't give a crap.
I was just curious.
Pittsburgh is farther away than like the Giants and
So who could it be?
Washington and the Ravens. Like,
Yeah,
no,
what are they called? The
that's stupid.
I-90, right? The I-90 showdown is how they've been phrasing it again.
I-95.
Yes, I drive
You live
I-95.
on it. Like,
I
what do you?
literally drive on I-95.
It's not like you're in the West Coast.
Which one's I-90?
Not that one.
Utah? I don't know.
I don't
All right.
know. Did you just say Utah?
It doesn't. It goes up and down. 5, 4, 3. That's how they're labeled. So I'm figuring
You got all the way to Utah with 5 of them?
Well, they're like the major ones. Which
All
one
right.
is I-90?
I don't know, and I don't care.
Okay, so while I look it up, why don't you tell us where we can find you?
Oh
wait, I didn't give you the spread.
okay.
The Buffalo Bills are the Chiefs are 1.5 point favorites.
It's very helpful.
The Chiefs are 1.5 point favorites and are on the money line -125. Over under is set as same as the Commanders and Eagles 47.5.
I'm going to pick the Bills to cover and the Bills to win.
I am taking Bills to cover and Bills to win. Cleveland. I made it too far. Where can we find you?
Really actually, this is going to sound super depressing, and I don't want it to sound super depressing. But I will be at a funeral at 3:00 on Sunday. So that stresses me out.
Okay.
And I need to figure out how I can wear my Jalen Hurts jersey under a suit.
Do they like football?
Yeah.
Then just do it.
But like, I need to see. The thing is
do you have one of the black jerseys?
I do, but I've worn my Jalen Hurts jersey for every game since we started the win streak. That's the problem. The thing is I need to talk. So this is my mom's brother. My mom has passed on.
Mm-hmm.
I would ask her if I got her permission. It'd be like great. But like now I can't get her permission. I did wear the Eagles jersey she got me to her funeral.
Yeah.
I was honestly.
I feel like that's permission.
Well, no, it's permission because she was my mom, and who's going to tell me off? Like
no one. You could.
It's like, hey, my mom died, and you're yelling at me about wearing an Eagles jersey for a funeral, and that one was black. Like no. How about no? How about I can do whatever I want? But like this is like I need to be respectful of someone that I loved as well.
Yeah.
So actually, I just need to talk to my mom's other brother. Still living. So I need to talk to him and see what his thoughts are. And kind of.
Why don't you just do it with like do you have like a black button down, like a polo button down?
Yeah.
Put that over the jersey and then the suit jacket.
Well, yeah, and then it's I'm like just wearing it over a jersey.
No, but you don't have to fully button it. Like you're not just wearing it over a jersey. Like it's just easier. It's easier to go like this if you need to. Like if you feel a little uncomfortable in it. Anyway, for those I'm not laughing. By the way, people are gonna be like, she's laughing at Duncan. I'm not.
Oh no, you can laugh. I brought it up. This is the thing that
I'm not laughing at Duncan. We talk about this all the time.
I love my uncle, and I'm very sad that he's gone.
Yes,
like that. But like, unfortunately, this is what I have to deal with in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
I need to figure this because if we lose, and it's because I didn't wear my Jalen Hurts jersey, I will never forgive myself. So
would you forgive your uncle?
Yeah, it's not his fault. If anything, it's like. I can't say it's his widow's fault. I love my aunt for scheduling it. I'm gonna assume it's that particular church's fault for scheduling it.
Yeah, it's the church. Yeah.
So like again, he was a pastor too. It makes it a little bit.
Okay,
I know.
Yeah.
There's just it's a no-win situation. There's no one to blame here.
Gosh.
So I'm just kind of Yeah.
Anyway,
you can find me on Twitter at mpduncan75.
You can find me, Duncan, and the entire Undroppables crew on our Discord channels by becoming a patron at patreon.com/theundroppables. You can find me on Twitter at Ashley_Marie with 2 A's and Ashley. You can find me and Duncan here live 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Wednesday nights. And you can listen back to us anywhere you get your ears. When you listen and you put things in your ears, or watch us back on YouTube. And by the way, we found out, I remembered after that comment from Jamie, the evens go east to west, the odds go north to south. So that I was confused. So like the I-90 goes that way, evens north to west. Anyway, we hope to see you all here next week. See Duncan's reaction, good, bad, on the Eagles. And we hope you have a wonderful conference championship round of NFL playoffs. See you then.
Rest in peace, Uncle Ronnie. I love you, and go Birds.
Bye.